I love it when that happens. It's always right when I first get started, Alexis. Hey, everybody. This is Jeff, co-host of the MCU'S Bleeding Edge. We're back once again with a great panel of guests here tonight, and I'm going to get right into it right off the bat. Start right off the show by letting everybody know who's on here. They're all faces that have been on before in the past, although it's been a little bit of a gap in time for somebody like Mark, for instance. Mark is, of course, from the Radulich and Broadcasting Network, which is a part of the W2M network. And Mark, thank you for joining us once again. It's great to have you on.
Thanks, Jeff. Thanks for having me back on. I'm excited to be here.
I'm very excited to have you on, sir. And Alexis, who is, of course, a regular guest on the Radulich and Broadcasting Network and a pretty regular guest on the Bleeding Edge, is back once again. It's nice to see you, Alexis.
Thanks for having me on. I think she's stopped barking. I got the back door open, and it's a nice night out, so I think she was just barking and someone probably walking out past our house. So,
well, this is, of course, going to be the official Eternals review, our kind of first take Eternals review, essentially, since I didn't mention that right off the bat. And it looks like the sides are going to be Alexis and me versus Lord Deathman and Mark on this review.
But we got Lord steel cage.
That's right. At least it's going to be fair and equal. But we got Lord Deathman back here from sakar.freeforums.net, the podcast of champions, where he moderates probably 50% of the time and then is a wonderful panel member on the other ones. It's good to see you again, Deathman.
Thank you for having me on the show, Jeff. Looking forward to talking serious Eternals talk.
Well, you know, I'm always very happy to have you on, Deathman, and this is Deathman's second review of the Eternals today, actually. So
it is.
How did the Podcast of Champions review go today?
Oh, it went really well. We had a really great discussion about the movie. You know, I think it was a pretty balanced take on what it is, but you know, we drew some conclusions that might seem a little controversial, but I'll try to share some of those ideas in our discussion.
Great. All right. And as usual, it would not be anything normal for any of you out there that like to catch our YouTube channel and watch our videos to see me, of course, starting the show off by jumping completely off topic and dropping the new Batman trailer from the DC fandom event that they had the other day, just so I can get all of my guests' takes on the trailer. I think it's really great. I want to see what they want to think about it. So I'm going to go ahead and drop it, and then we'll get into the reactions. All right, Deathman. I love that trailer. I think it's freaking great. What do you think, man?
Wow. You went to me first. That's cool. Listen, I love that trailer. I love the music. I love the visual representation they're bringing to it. I think Matt Reeves is a brilliant director. Stylistically, this film feels like it's a fresh take on Batman. And I like the neo-noir sort of overtones of it. As a piece of promotional material, it's extremely well crafted. You have to give the guys, the marketing department at WB, a lot of credit for it. But personally, in terms of where I am as a fan in fandom with Batman, a few years ago, if you told me that there was a world in which I had to not have Batman in my steady diet of fandom, it would have been a total tragedy. But nowadays, you know, with some years behind me and kind of seeing all the drama that goes on in the Batman fandom, I'm kind of good at this moment. And I have to say, while it does look good from a production values, quote unquote, and I'm dropping heavy air quotes there, from the point of view of production values, it looks fantastic. But I'm really not interested in seeing sociopathic Batman, you know, Batman who is kind of angry and whooping people and screaming all the time. That's just not my cup of tea in terms of an interpretation of Batman. It feels like, you know, millennial Batman is what they're trying to bring to the table here. Totally cool. I'm not taking a dump on it at all. But I think, you know, being on the cusp of Y and X in terms of generations, I'm used to precision Batman, surgical Batman. I'm used to the detective who brings discipline and order to what he does. And there just feels like purpose in the mission. This feels like, you know, Batman is just going to kind of get his jollies off beating a lot of people up for a couple of hours. And that's cool if that's your thing. but interpretation wise, it may not be up my alley. But it sure does look really pretty.
Exactly. It does look really pretty. Alexis, what's your take on the new Batman trailer?
The fact that Warner Brothers must be putting a heavy penny into their advertising budget, because this trailer gets played at least once a day on YouTube. Swear to God, I always have YouTube in the background while I'm working, and this is always played at least once in an ad for something I'm watching. I have seen this trailer 1,000 times already. And I think the first thing I said when I saw was, "She's got to be kidding me. That's Colin Farrell under that makeup? He is completely unrecognizable."
Yeah, most definitely.
Yeah. I am intrigued. I agree with Lord Deathman about wanting to see more of the analytical detective Batman, but frankly, the fists out, not going to take any bullshit Batman is not something we've really seen in film. This is a new direction they're going with. We've never seen him just say, like, screw it. I've had enough of this. I'm just losing it. And I do think there is something about the idea of Batman losing himself too much to his identity and forgetting his own humanity and who he is as Bruce Wayne. So I also really like Andy Serkis as Alfred. I'm looking forward to that.
Yeah. What do you think, Mark? What was your initial take when you first saw it the first time? I know you've probably seen it a bunch of times by now.
I like the use of Something in the Way by Nirvana. I'm a huge Nirvana fan.
Yep.
It's probably dating myself. But
Too late.
I really, really like the use of Something in the Way to set an ominous tone for the movie. Yeah, I've heard the buzz on this. This is not thoughtful, methodical detective Batman. This is year 2 punch his way through the crowd Batman, which I tell you, I think this is Warner Brothers really trying to give the vast majority of passive general audiences the Batman they want, which is the punchy Batman. Not, much like Alexis and Lord Deathman, it's not my personal taste. But I'm sure my 7-year-old will enjoy it. I can already tell you my 10-year-old feminist daughter will love the shit out of Catwoman. And that's really all that matters. I'm nearing 50. My opinions don't matter at this point. So, but I mean, I am on a scale of 1 to 10. I'm probably like a 6 or 7 excited for this movie. I'll be curious to see what they do in the wake of Batfleck.
Well, and we're gonna get Batfleck, right? In the Flash.
I've heard Michael Keaton's '89 Batman's in that. And then I wasn't sure if Batfleck was appearing in that one or if there wasn't another iteration of Batman. I can't keep track anymore.
Michael Keaton's been spotted on set, so it's confirmed that he's going to be in this since this is the Flashpoint Batman, so that makes sense. Mm-hmm. But they will not confirm who is playing the younger Bruce Wayne. They're not confirmed who's playing Bruce Wayne, not Thomas Wayne, I should say.
Mm-hmm. So we'll see. Until a trailer and a confirmed cast list is out, I can't even begin to speculate. Right. But yeah, I thought Batfleck was done.
Well, I'll tell you. I mean, for me, the imagery, the end of the trailer, when I love that whole car chase scene or whatever, where you see the new Batmobile coming out of the fire. Mm-hmm. It looks great. It's really exciting. And
we got a Cadillac for the new Batmobile.
Honestly, I mean, say what you want about it.
A muscle car.
When I was in the movie theater today watching the Eternals and they played this trailer before the movie, it gave me more chills. The trailer did in the theater than the Eternals ever did anything for me. So I mean, I was definitely more like jazzed about the Batman trailer than I was the film. But so. I mean, what's your thoughts, Mark? What do you think of the new Catwoman? What do you think of Zoe Kravitz?
She's a competent actress. She has a lot of sex appeal. I'm trying to picture her next to Robert Pattinson without the mask on. I got to see a little bit more to see if together they have some sex appeal. But I'm willing to give it a shot. I don't have anything against the woman. I liked. I believe it was Lord Deathman. Correct me if I'm wrong about this. If you know. Zoe Kravitz was the one that was in the High Fidelity show on Hulu, right?
She was.
Okay.
And if the behind the scenes on set rumors of the Batman are true, those two are going to have a lot of sexual chemistry
Yeah,
in this movie.
that was the phrase I was looking
So,
for, sexual chemistry.
yeah.
Yeah, she's a competent actress. She was really I just want to make sure I had the right actress. I liked her on the High Fidelity show, which unfortunately got canceled after one season. I think she's going to be great. You know, I think her and Robert Pattinson will light up the screen. This whole I have to say, if I'm sounding a little reticent to say anything nice about this movie, I will tell you I think it's got a killer cast. If nothing else, this cast is amazing.
Go ahead, Deathman.
Mark, I'm sorry to interrupt anyone, but I just want to say I'm so on the same page with you. I don't want to sound down on this movie or super reserved about it. It's an interpretation, right? They're going to do the thing. And I do hope the fans really enjoy this film, and it looks like it's going to be brilliant. If there was any reason that I would want to go and see this film, I think it's the Colin Farrell transformation that's really bringing me into the idea, because he really went deep here, and you can see it just in very small clips in the trailer. So I'm here for it. It's just I just feel like having some Bat miles on me. I can't get excited for this the way I would have gotten excited for, say, The Dark Knight or Batman Begins or something like that.
It is hard for me to have faith in Warner Brothers when they've clumsy waded their way through the DC movies, starting with Man of Steel. And I remember back in the long ago time when we saw trailers for Batman v Superman, and we were all super excited about how that movie was going to go. And then we saw it, and they edited it with a weed whacker. They got what's his face who played Lex Luthor, who I'm not entirely sure what in the hell Zack Snyder was doing with him.
I still remember when that casting announce dropped, and everyone I knew was like, "This is a joke." It's like it took us a week to grasp. Like, no, they're serious.
Right. And so, look, we were all excited for Batman v Superman, and then we saw it, and to say it got mixed reviews would be an understatement. And they never really recovered from that. It was hard for Warner Brothers as a studio to find footing. They had issues with Zack Snyder and Josh Whedon, which we don't need to get into. And there's been some hits, Shazam, Aquaman. There's been some misses, everything else. So I am the stove's hot. I've touched it one too many times. Let's just see what happens.
Okay. Do I have any final thoughts? Anybody want anything else to say about the Batman trailer before we move on into the Eternals?
I have one last comment to add very quick here. Like I said, sadistic, sort of punchy Batman really isn't my thing, but I will cop to the fact that the most sadistic Batman of them all is a favorite of mine from The Dark Knight Returns by Frank Miller. That's where you can get well-honed sadism in your Batman without feeling guilty about it.
Is there a more influential book than Frank Miller's Dark Knight Returns? Because I feel like every modern cinematic interpretation of Batman draws from that from one degree or another. That and The Killing Joke.
And Year One.
Yeah.
I mean, I still would say that in terms of cultural cash, The Dark Knight Returns has gotten so much cultural play that we're sort of turning the corner where it was once universally accepted as the Batman story. And now you have it turning the corner where people are like, well, I don't know. Superman's a puppet. And, now you're getting a totally different take on it. That's almost, a 180. So it's still very much alive in the conversation.
Doesn't help that Frank Miller's gone completely off the deep end.
Yeah.
Well, go ahead.
I was just going to say, we can't kill the author here in terms of Lindsay Ellis logic.
And you can never forget all the great work he did with Daredevil either.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
I mean, that's one of my go-to favorites. Is the Frank Miller run of Daredevil. What he really did with Daredevil was something else. But so okay, moving on to the Eternals. Just to start things right off the bat, I want to go around the table and just get your general takes on the film overall, your initial thoughts, kind of what was in your head when the film ended, when you saw it in the theater, if you can go back. I'll start with you, Alexis. Go ahead.
The two words that entered my head as the credits rolled up: grossly mishandled. This, for me, was not necessarily a bad movie. There was a lot of parts that I really did enjoy. This film had a lot of really good, deep philosophical questions. It raised a lot of creative ideas. It had some incredible acting. But I felt like it was just like I felt like somebody took all these wonderful ingredients and rather than making something truly unique with them, threw them all into the pot at the wrong time.
Okay. Do you want to give any more detail in terms of what your do you have anything else to add in terms of what your initial reactions were when you first saw the movie?
Oh yeah, I'm sorry. I thought you just wanted something quick for us all to go
No,
around.
go ahead. No, take your time. You got all the
Okay.
time you want.
All right. Sorry, I'm also getting paw on the back here. I'm trying to say this one. It really did bug me also that any one of these, well, majority of these characters had such interesting backstories and character arcs. It could have filled a whole 2-hour movie alone. You know what I'm saying? It's like, okay, you have Sprite, who is eternally locked in the body of a preteen girl, is never going to be able to grow up, and she's never going to be able to be with the man she loves, Icarus. That's an incredible story arc. You have Kingo, a man who has made a career in acting and has managed to play himself for 5 generations, always pretending to be the next descendant. Incredibly creative. I want to know more. You have Fastos, a man who feels this horrible guilt that the technology that he seeded into the ground has become horrible weapons of destruction and resulted in so much death. And he's trying to make a family and move on and try just so hard to, make a better life for himself. I want to see more of that. Druig, who can control minds and is disgusted watching humans kill each other. It's like someone who has these 2 pets that are constantly fighting, and you're like, no, I gotta let them get it out. And then you come home and one of the pets is dead. And he feels this anguish that he knows he has the power to control the humanity, and he doesn't. I want to see more of that. And what do we get? We focus on 2 of the most bland characters in Marvel history, Sersi and Ikaris. Gemma Chan and Richard Madden are great actors. I've seen them in a bunch of other stuff. Really liked them. Love Gemma Chan and Crazy Rich Asians. But we know so little about her character. She gives very little. She gives a good performance with what she has, but she's boring. She and Ikaris are so dull. We know so little about it, especially Ikaris. It's like it's like the others, we see personality. We see character. I don't see anything with these 2. I was upset that Kit Harington's character, Dane, was not in the movie that much because just a few minutes of them together, it's like he is more interesting than she is. He's actually showing signs of character. I want to watch him. I would love to watch any of these other characters. Something was brought up earlier from a friend of mine on Facebook, and I think he actually hit the nail right on the head. This story, the Eternal story, would have benefited so much better were it not a movie, were it a series. This should have been a Marvel Disney Plus series. We could have had an episode each, focusing on each character's backstory, seeing them grow, seeing how they have changed, being thousands of years on Earth. I think it would have been so fascinating to see something like that. And instead, it's crammed into 2.5 hours, and the characters who have personality, we don't spend enough time with. Mark and I were talking earlier today about the idea of calling a film boring as a critique. And I said, yeah, that is part of the problem, unfortunately, with this one, is that Marvel has conditioned us that when we go in for a Marvel film, we expect fun. And yeah, I did want a little bit more fun out of this. Now I can understand it was done differently from other Marvel movies, and they were trying something new and different, and that's a good thing. We need to continuously try new things, but this film is still so dull.
Yes.
There's a few little he laughs, but I can't remember any jokes that really stuck out with me. And I only remember one moment in the whole movie where I actually got like a "oh my god" reaction, and that's the moment right near the end when the Celestial shows up in Earth's atmosphere. I think I actually shouted like, "Oh shit," in the theater because I was not expecting that.
I never even I never even broke a smile to any of the humor or anything that occurred during the movie. Now I'm a pretty serious dude, as everybody knows about me anyway. But like, I mean, I'm telling you, I didn't even like actually smile at any of like the jokes or anything. For me, the humor just fell flat to me. And like, and I'm with you, Alexis. I think that movie is boring as shit. Like seriously.
Like I
mean,
said, a Marvel movie does not have to be a roller coaster. We can't have them all just be crazy uber excitement. I get that. I'm not, and there's a lot of people who are ragging on critics for saying that kind of stuff. They're like, "Well, you just want all Marvel movies to be the same." No, I don't. I know that we have to change. We have to do different things. I just don't like that they spend so much time focusing on dull characters
well,
and not giving us a lot of
I
development. I mean, you have 10 characters in this movie and barely any of them get a real coherent story arc.
I thought the whole thing was supposed to be that we were supposed to get Chloe Zhao and she was going to be giving us this wonderful, unique, game changing Marvel movie or whatever. And all she gave us was just this like vacant, dead, whatever. I don't want to completely, I don't want to go over the rails, but Mark, what's your general consensus on the Eternals based off seeing it?
You asked what was my immediate thought when the movie was over?
Yeah, yes.
Okay, so my immediate thought, and I put this in the group chat that we have that Alexis and I are involved with the other podcasters that I work with. I love this. Everyone on Earth is going to hate it. I guarantee. Immediately, it was like, yeah, I can't imagine this having wide appeal. For the same reason, and I'm going to compare it to the one that she won Best Picture for Nomadland. Robert Winfrey and I reviewed that Friday night along with Mank and The Father, and the thing that we talked about was there are some truly wonderfully crafted example of what a motion picture should be movies out there that don't have wide appeal, because the vast majority of people who go to see the movies are not film people. They're passive general audience movie members, and there's nothing wrong with that. This is not a knock against those people. If we didn't have them, Avengers Endgame doesn't make nearly $3 billion. I get that. But I think there has to be a distinction between people who can sit down and truly appreciate a film and those who are just looking for a fun night at the movies. And that was my big takeaway from Eternals. I stopped thinking of it about midway through. I stopped thinking of it as a Marvel movie. So all my preconditioned Marvel movies have to be a Disney theme park ride of an experience with oh so quippy superheroes and dynamic action scenes, and just kind of let Chloe Zhao tell the story that, and I saw it Thursday before Nomadland, just so you see what the order I watched these in. I got what she was doing about midway through and forgot I was watching a Marvel movie. And I'll tell you what I compared it to, Jeff. And if you've watched either one of these, I'll be curious to get your reaction to this. Eternals didn't feel like a Marvel anything. Television show, movie, comic book, nothing. You know what it felt like? It felt like Jupiter's Legacy and The Boys. Now, a classier, less blood everywhere and tits out version of The Boys. But, closer to Jupiter's Legacy. And both of those, and if you want another one, as an example, Watchmen on HBO. Here you had 3 examples of the deconstruction of the superhero genre. To one degree or another, were, crass or serious, depending on which one we're talking about. But either way, they went against the grain of the classic superhero story, which is their appeal. And they can get away with it because Watchmen isn't Marvel. It wasn't even technically DC at the time that it was written, not these days. Jupiter's Legacy, not Marvel, also an indie. And then The Boys. So people are more accepting of the sort of weird running up the down staircase nature of those 3 things. And then you get to this one, and Chloe Zhao is not given the same breath. She's not given the same respect. She was expected to do Iron Man 67 or Avengers 42. and it's unfair. I think it's ridiculous. But I'm not here to tell people how to enjoy films or not to enjoy films. I can only tell you that I liked it for what it was, not for what I wanted it to be. However that makes me sound.
Okay. All right, I think that's very fair, and I'm about to give you a bunch of different questions and cover a bunch of different aspects of the film and get you on those. So,
real quick, have you watched either Watchmen, Jupiter's Legacy, or The Boys?
Yes. Well, I've seen Jupiter's Legacy. I've watched The Boys off and on, and I've seen the Watchmen film, the Zack Snyder Watchmen, but I didn't see the HBO series.
Go see the HBO series. Mark and I reviewed it on the network. Plug. It is really good.
Alexis and I almost got into a fist fight over it because we had watched that and we had reviewed that around the same time as The Mandalorian. So you want to hear me get all hoity with Alexis? That's a fun show.
Did any of you guys ever get into Deadwood on HBO back in the day?
It's on my list. I watched what's the other one that was around the same time. With the circus people, shit.
Trem. No, not
nope.
Trem. I know what you're talking about.
The one with Clancy Brown as the priest, right?
Yeah. The Dust Bowl circus people went 2 seasons. I went Carnival. That's what it was. I keep thinking that's wrong because I keep thinking of Carnival Row, which is the Amazon show. No, but it was Carnival. I've watched both seasons of Carnival. Deadwood's still on my list.
Got to see Deadwood. Deathman, do you ever get into Deadwood?
Yeah, I did. I caught, I think it was the first 2 seasons of that show and really enjoyed it. But for some reason fell off. I don't know, where they left it. But I probably got distracted by more content that was out there.
Supposedly they're going to make a movie. They're going to continue.
I thought the movie was already out.
No, they haven't even made it yet.
Okay.
Yeah. So anyways, that was just an aside. But so Deathman, what was your initial response upon finishing the film in the theater?
My initial response, as in the visceral feeling that came out of me after seeing Eternals, was gratitude. And not gratitude that the film had ended, but gratitude that Marvel Studios took the leap to actually make Eternals. So I know this round is really about talking about quick impressions, but Alexis had her 2 words about, what the film felt like when she was done, and my 2 would be love letter. And love letter to a very specific segment of the Marvel fandom. People who like the Eternals are a niche inside of a niche. And, if I could kind of just share an anecdote that I think would help communicate how I think that the property and the IP of the Eternals is so badly matched with the MCU formula. If I could communicate that idea, I think people could be a little easier on this film. I used to work in a comic book store, and it was a great pleasure of mine to always introduce new readers to Jack Kirby's work, Jack and Stan Lee. You'd come in and you'd ask me for the Hulk omnibus. Here you go. Just give me your money. Don't ask any questions. Same thing for the Fantastic Four. Don't, please, just take this, read it. You're going to think it's genius. People are like, well, the characters look so stretchy and so, like rubbery, as compared to like Jim Lee or some contemporary artist of the day with these really anatomically correct figures. But I'll tell you, after you've run through all of the Jack Kirby and Stan Lee work, after you've delved through every single corner and you've read everything, maybe you've even read it twice, the Eternals will be waiting for you because you have never read that and you never had any interest in reading it. And there's just really I think a very different type of fan who's predisposed to like the idea of the Eternals, because I think Jack Kirby was in a very different place when he was trying to come up with those ideas. Similar themes to the Fourth World. It's not really about the punching and the violence. It's not about superheroics. The Eternals are immortal beings who are pawns in someone else's game. That's the best definition I can give you for what this property means. It's not a property that meshed well with, let me tell a quippy MCU joke now, right? It's not like a fun roller coaster ride where superheroes do heroic good things. We want to save the Earth. The Eternals is about 2 different civilizations, a civilization of deviance an ever-changing amorphous race that is not long-lived, and their cousins, the Eternals, who are powerful, immortal beings. And they are both at war with each other. But the richer sort of thematic part of the story is that they have these celestials, and we all, humans, Eternals, deviants, we have to get our act together before the celestials show up. That's really it in a nutshell. This is not, Reed Richards and the Hulk and some other guys are going to team up to pound on the Mole Man. It's a little different than that. So I was really surprised when they said that they wanted to turn Eternals into a movie. The themes of determinism, fatalism in the Eternals have to obey their masters in the comic books. They cannot even consciously make a decision that would go against the Celestials. They are hardwired to obey. And that's pretty different and powerful than what you get from typical superhero mythology.
Lord Deathman, we just reviewed the Neil Gaiman, I think it's issues 1 through 7, Neil Gaiman's Eternals. As you were talking, and as I think back to, I wasn't on that podcast. That was Jesse Starcher and Robert Cooper. It sounded like the movie drew more inspiration from Gaiman's version of the Eternals than Jack Kirby's thought. Though some of this stuff in the Venn diagram sounds pretty similar. You being a comic book person the way you are, I was curious to get your impressions of that.
Yeah, I think they did pull from the more contemporary ones, but they run the gamut in terms of it. In terms of it, but I'll tell you what's different. And these are big thematic differences that they had to make in order to cater to modern audiences. A modern audience would never sort of sit still for a narrative in which you don't have any free will or any agency, because none of the Eternals do. A modern audience was never going to sit still for the idea that you never win and you never die, right? It's authority was like something people trusted in 1970 when Jack Kirby wrote that story, right? But now we're all sort of anti-authority shitheads, and the idea of obeying intergalactic bosses who only show up, like every millennia or so. That's not a cool kid narrative, right? And I'm not challenging anybody's belief systems here. All I'm saying is that Chloe Zhao had a huge lift in terms of taking the intention of Jack Kirby's work and turning it into this film. And my biggest criticism of this film is that if you're looking for the Icarus in this whole story, it's Kevin Feige. He's the one who flies a little close to the sun here, because Eternals, honestly, I'm glad they made it, but it probably shouldn't have been made in the current context of MCU films. It just isn't going to be the fun roller coaster. Fun. Everybody wanted fun. I got to tell you, the Eternals is unfun on the page.
But they try to make it fun
in the panel.
Deathman, they try to make it fun at times.
Which I think is where the disconnect is. If they'd have really went for a more truthful rendition of this, I shouldn't say truthful, but a more accurate rendition of this, you would kind of see it as the kind of tragic superhero story it is, and not the let's hang out in the donut with Tony type thing.
Let me add this to this. We might not have gotten Eternals in this time period the way that it was done had a couple of elements in history not been what they were. What I'm referring specifically to is this should have been Inhumans. The intentions was, for a while now, was to do an Inhumans movie, but in the rash to get Marvel stuff on ABC television, they went ahead and adapted that, then gave it no budget. Then they shot it in the head and drug it from a truck and hung it from a tree for no apparent reason. I don't know what happened with Inhumans. But
I was just gonna say we don't speak of that movie, but Mark, I think you nailed it a lot more clearly.
And it's clear that they didn't know what Inhumans was when they made it. They didn't know what that story was about.
Right.
Yeah.
So
Inhumans is a war film.
Make an Inhumans movie. They were like, well, what's the next? Going down the list of things we haven't made a movie of yet. In that same vein, what's after Inhumans? The other one, Eternals. So like, fuck it, whatever, just go, make it.
Well, let's face it, between the botched movie and the way they botched the Inhumans showing up in Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D., it's going to take a miracle for Inhumans to see the light of the MCU ever again.
Well, the other problem with that is the Inhumans were supposed to be the stand-in for the X-Men, and now we've got the X-Men whenever they get that ball rolling. Go ahead. I'm sorry, Jeff.
I think the Inhumans is actually like Oscar-worthy, like contender compared to the Eternals. To be completely honest with you.
Okay, I'm not going that far. I am Jeff. You are on your own, man. You are so on your own.
Jeff, I think you're just trying to be the agent provocateur here. I understand you didn't like the film, and I'm not trying to apologize for anything. I enjoyed this film for purely what it was. But I just think that the reason audiences are not connecting with it is because the property, the IP itself, is just not a great match for the formularized sort of MCU that we're dealing with. Yeah, and this was an abrupt change, you know.
If you're an intellectual and you connect intellectually with the Eternals, you become like one of the Eternals bourgeois, like or whatever, and like. Yeah.
Lord Deathman, he's trying to pick a fight, man.
No, I'll you want to call me one of the bourgeoisie? I'll accept that. That's fine.
Yeah,
I'm better than you all, and you know it. How about that?
I thought you were the old man who lived in the mountains.
Depends on which podcast we're on.
No, Deathman, you're just cracking me up because you're using these elegant words for like this piece of shit that Chloe Zhao delivered to us or whatever that I watched today. And it's like you're using these beautiful words and this beautiful speech about like what this movie moved you or whatever and everything. And
well, Jeff, if you want, I can get you some underoos with Spider-Man and Hulk.
Yes,
it'll be all better for you, right?
I'm waiting for Jeff to take a beat and go. The Eternals insist upon itself. I like the money pit. That's what I'm waiting for.
I'm just not seeing. I just don't know what the big leap was. Like, I didn't see any big leap of anything when I watched the Eternals today. Like, I didn't see any.
I will at least, if I can, I will at least give credit. I did get excited by the post credits and the end credit scenes.
Okay,
I did enjoy those.
There was your candy.
Yeah.
Okay, I am not a Harry Styles fangirl. I'm not. Okay, I'm 37. I'm a little old for that. So I'm not in that age group.
I think the thing people are keying into is the moral conflict that I talked about before. The idea of it's such a funny thing because comic books and movies have both sort of dealt with this idea of why does Earth have to be central to everything? And there have been some cockamamie explanations within narrative for that. Earth was chosen by whatever God was being referred to at the time as the center for all things. That's only because the audience for these things happens to live on Earth. And so
there's a really great line in the animated film Monsters vs. Aliens where they make a jab about that. It's like landed on the White House, which for some reason seems to be the only place that aliens ever land. Right. It's just like, I do love that when they point that out. It's like, yeah, what do you know? Aliens, Earth, again.
So in the vast cold of space that goes on ad infinitum, you have to believe that there are clearly, especially in the Marvel Cinematic Universe, that there are other intelligent beings out there. Why is Earth so important? And if the Celestials' main objective was to birth more Celestials by occasionally blowing up a planet, who gives a shit about Earth? And that's where Icarus is coming from. It's like, hey, let's look at the larger picture here. Earth ain't that important. And then you have, sort of micro attachment to the Earth going, well, we've lived here for a couple of centuries. We've gotten attached to the place and we don't want to see it blowed up. And those two philosophies in conflict with each other. Considering the only other time Marvel has done moral conflict was Civil War, and they did it stupid. Look, is this the most intelligently written movie I've ever seen? No, of course not. But the fact that it took that in 27,000 movies that this studio's produced, we've got 2 that dealt in moral conflicts. 2. So I'm willing to be very forgiving of it. And if moral conflict is not your thing, like I don't know what your take on Civil War was. But, let me tell you something. Moral conflict was not what drew people into Civil War. Seeing Captain America punch Iron Man in the face was. Yeah. So I get why people gravitated towards that. But I mean, here, this wasn't that kind of a movie. And it's not going to work for everybody. And that's fair. But that's what it was. And that doesn't make it shitty. That just makes it extremely different from the 97 other movies in this series.
Okay, well, listen.
Mark, first off, I'm canonizing you as a saint. That was a beautiful take on
Do
it.
not do this. He
And-
doesn't need the ego boost. Okay,
I
work
do.
with him more than
I
you
do.
guys do. No,
I usually like it.
doesn't.
I usually like it from women, but I'll take it from anywhere. I'm a whore for attention. It's fine, Lord Deathman.
Yeah,
I
he
accept the
is.
canonization.
My super hot take on this film is that Icarus was the hero of the film. And who gives a shit about humanity, you know? But I think our narcissism is like, oh man, that dude, what a fucker. He doesn't understand that we need to be here, and let's shelf all these ridiculous narratives that super aliens from another planet helped us develop over thousands of years. That's shitty too, because we did it all on our own. It was total bootstraps. This property does not fit this time or this audience. It probably never will.
No, I think
just out of curiosity, I do want to know what you and Lord Deathman at least think of this, because it did just appear on the text box below. What did you think about the sudden addition of Crow? Because frankly, I thought that was one of the most useless villain additions in movie history. Crow was the deviant who could talk, voice.
I couldn't even tell it was
He was
the
the one that
same
was
character.
molesting Angelina Jolie at the end, right?
Yeah, I couldn't even tell it was him. It was him in different parts of the movie. I couldn't even tell.
Apparently voiced by Bill Skarsgård, if you can believe it. I couldn't tell that was him. I mean, there was no personality in the voice.
Is Bill he the clown guy from It, or is he the other one?
Yeah, he's Pennywise.
Yeah.
Yeah, I wouldn't know Crow if I fucking tripped over him in the movie theater itself. Okay, honestly, I looked at that character as an evolution of what the Deviants were, and did not even realize he was canon to the comics. Nor do I care. Let me go ahead and be the one that says this on this show. I do not give a shit about the comics. I don't care how accurate the movie is to the source material. I care that the story is sound in the movie I'm watching.
See, or that man, you still want to make him a saint?
I'm not even going to the comics here. I'm not even trying to go to the comics. I'm saying that the whole dynamic between the Deviants and the Eternals in the film, there's nothing to it. Like, they don't do anything with it. They don't point out any of the similarities between the two groups. They don't contrast them. They're just kind of there. Like, the Deviants were there.
And Jeff, I would agree with you on that 100%. The MCU has a horrible way of flattening the mythologies and the stories from the comic books, and this is a prime example of it.
The Deviants were almost irrelevant, Deathman, and that segues into the next.
Not almost irrelevant. They took a whole civilization in the comic books. Deviants number in the tens of thousands in the comic books.
Yeah,
they all have names and personalities, and they turned it into one nameless dude.
They turned him into the xenomorph. They turned him into the xenomorphs from Aliens, which is kind of all I regarded him as. So Jeff's point is well taken. The villains in these things were just nameless, faceless monsters and nothing to connect with. And that is a failure, one of the failures of the movie, no doubt about it. I think because of the other strengths of the movie, I tended to not focus on that as much.
Alexis and I talked about this whole thing months ago, just based off the trailers, that we felt like there was going to be a problem with the villain aspect, and we felt like the Deviants didn't look good.
Well, it wasn't just that. I remember us talking about, because we did a trailer react to it, and I said that one of the problems I had with the trailer, and unfortunately it is one of the problems I had with the movie, was that I felt that there wasn't a lot of identity to the conflict. The trailers worked so hard to hide.
Really, how the conflict is between the Eternals. There's a faction of the Eternals who want to do what their bosses want, and there's a faction that does not. The Deviants are almost irrelevant. They get so nerfed as far as the movie goes that your conflict is really with the villains, and that's why I ignored Crow altogether. He's just a momentary distraction that happens.
Salma Hayek has the line. If you're looking for some sense of where the movie is going strictly from the trailer, Salma Hayek is the one that delivers the important line. When you love something, you protect it. The implication being you're protecting it from the Deviants. What the movie is about is they are protecting it from the grand design of the Celestials.
Yes.
And how some of the Eternals have bought into it because they see the macro meaning of things, and some have rejected it because they've fallen in love with their adopted home, with their adopted world. That's what the movie is.
And neither side. What's and I won't use the word elegant for Jeff's sake. I'll say what's nice about that is that neither side is wrong. Neither side is wrong in that conflict, and I think that was a well-constructed dynamic in the film.
Lord Deathman, have you watched Jupiter's Legacy?
I have.
Okay, so there was also Robert Winfrey and I spent like 3 hours talking about that show. I think that we may have spent longer on it than anybody else on Earth. And the thing that we were talking about relative to the Eternal, so you just don't think I'm going on a crazy side tangent, is that there were two sides of a moral conflict, and neither one of them clearly had the upper hand.
Right.
The show very much is, well, it presents two ideas in conflict with each other and lets the audience decide which side you're going to be on. It isn't, neither side in the show has a clear is clearly over the other. And to your point about Eternals, that's what's going on here. Is sure, I think most people would be like, no, save the Earth, but that's self-serving, isn't it? I live here.
Yeah,
but that's how they sell it. That's how they sell it, though. At the end, they sell it that way. They make it. They kind of, in a way, they frame Ikaris and Sprite as being almost like villainous when they go off on their own.
To the point that Sprite stabs Sersi.
There you go.
Yeah. And okay, and that's bad because.
Well, no, it's just my point is just that there is no duality like that, like where there's like this respect for both sides of the equation or whatever, like the split between the Eternals, where there's like a righteousness with each side or whatever. They don't play it like that in the film. Chloe Zhao doesn't deliver that. You don't get that dichotomy.
Chloe Zhao definitely.
I'm sorry. I actually thought
you get the dichotomy, but she clearly takes a side. And
you took the words right out of my mouth. She has a perspective here that humanity is worth saving.
Yes, and if she didn't, this wouldn't have been. Jeff,
well, if Chloe Zhao is having serious questions about whether or not the Earth should be saved or not and shit, considering that I'm a human being that lives on Earth, I would hope that she's siding on like the positive side of things.
Do you know how the Lord's long storied history of nihilism on this planet?
See, my problem
I know people on a podcast that I do that would like to see the planet burn.
Does Chloe Zhao think that the Earth should be destroyed?
See, my problem, though, is that Ikaris and Sprite are not portrayed as in they think the Earth should be destroyed because it's for the greater purpose. To me, it comes across like they're just too scared to go against Arashim. You do get a speech from Kingo saying, "I don't want to fight, but I'm not going against the Celestials."
Hang on, let me talk about Sprite for a second. Sprite has been a child for upteen zillion years and just wants to die. Ikaris is the one going, this is what God wants, and who am I to question God? It was two different perspectives going to the same goal.
But again, we spent so little time with them. I really feel like they're okay. Fine, answer me this: why does Sersi, the lead, want to save the Earth? What specifically is she attached to? What has made her?
Did you not see her working with side by side with humans to establish agriculture? She embeds herself she insinuates herself into human history with a lot more intimacy than any of the other Eternals.
Through a
she
montage.
Learns their
we
language.
Never actually. It's through a montage. We never actually see her really identifying. Name me one thing that Sersi actively likes. Humor me. Name me one thing this character likes.
Well, she
likes Dane Whitman.
Dane Whitman would be like.
We can't even tell if she likes Dane Whitman or not. She says she doesn't want to move in with Dane Whitman.
They're clearly in a real okay. There are clearly plenty of couples out there that love each other that also don't want to be in the same room with each other.
Come on,
give me that.
Give me your best here, Jeff. Give me your best.
Their relationship doesn't even flush out. Like, it doesn't even do anything for you in the audience. Like, when they're together or whatever in the beginning, it doesn't even come off believable.
Sorry, I stand by what I said. What Dane Whitman was a lot more believable. I do remember giggling at the scene where Sprite and Sersi jump over the fence around, and he almost does the same thing. He's like, wait, there's stairs.
They might as well
that made me laugh. That did make me laugh. They might as well
just not even had him in the movie. They could have just not even had
100% agree with you. That is one of the, like I said, this isn't perfect. I have plenty of criticisms, but right now you've pushed me and Lord Deathman in a corner, so we're fighting out of it.
You have.
Sorry, do I have to get the provoking stick?
Only if you want to shove somewhere. Now listen, I actually don't feel like I love the character. I used to love the Black Knight in the Avengers.
I love the Black
comics.
Knight.
And I to use Alexis's term that she co-opted from the internet, I squeed when he opened up and saw the ebony blade. My kids were like, "Can we fucking go already? It's 10 o'clock at night. We got school tomorrow." What the fuck, man?
I squeed and got so excited. I had trouble hearing who that was who said that line at the end off screen. Although,
turns out it's Blade.
Yeah, I was going to say, everyone kept saying it was apparently Nick Fury, but the more I've been reading, no, it's Mahershala Ali.
That's what I read. I thought it was Nick Fury too, but my point
I squeed when I saw Sprite in a couple different scenes, and I was wondering, like, if maybe she would just show me her, her ID real quick, maybe before we hang out,
We had to bring, yes, we had to go there, Jeff. We had to go.
All right, so my point being that as much as I enjoyed the Ebony Blade scene and I enjoyed the actor from Game of Thrones who played the character, boy, was he not needed in this movie. They really could have cut him entirely out of it, and you don't lose a thing. This is one of those Marvel issues where, it's like, I have this beautifully crafted thing. Yes, but it's a turducken. Shove another bird in there. Shove another bird in there.
Right.
We need to get this character in. We need to get, this is the thing that made Joss Whedon, I think, turn to drinking after Age of Ultron. It was like, I have this wonderfully crafted movie about the dangers of mad scientry. And like, yes, but shove this fucking thing in there too. Like, oh, come on.
Yeah, because we got to keep them thinking about the future.
Right.
I want to say that people have been begging for, I want to say just overall with the MCU, people have been begging for a long time for the MCU to sort of change it up, to do something different with the formula, because for God's sake, it's too safe, it's too formulaic, blah, blah, blah. They finally do something different. And I'm not saying it's brilliant or flawless, but they do something different. And the reaction, the disproportionate hate for it is, dude, where'd you move my cheese? Like, where is it?
But just to be clear, who was it? Who do you think was out there asking for that different type of Marvel content?
So, like, can we parse this argument, because it's a little complicated, and I think people are misunderstanding things. When we say that, like, nobody in the general audience wanted Marvel to change. If we got if we got Iron Man and Guardians of the Galaxy for the next 100 years, the general audience would have been perfectly happy. What we're talking about is the critical consensus here.
Yeah.
And the critical consensus among professional critics, not YouTubers, not us rank amateurs screaming into the ether. I am talking about people who are paid to review these things and are supposed to be professionals. They were the ones going, I mean, just as an example, and as I say that, now I'm going to talk about one. The guy that does the pitch meetings for Screen Rant, his last one with Shang-Chi cracked me up, because he was just like, yeah, I think you hit everything on the Marvel checklist. Like, it's acknowledged that there is a very strict structure to a Marvel film. And and to use the word from earlier, it's boring a lot of people who are paid to review these things. And so they make comments and they say, gosh, I wish Marvel would be brave. I wish the Marvel Studios would do something out of the box. And then, as Lord Deathman says, then they do. You let Chloe Zhao make her sad piano environmental movie, and everyone, and those same critics are like, and they flip the table over.
Well, hey, I want to put it out there. I loved WandaVision. I mean, I did. I absolutely loved it. I'm one of the biggest proponents of WandaVision, and will defend it up and down the river.
The ending, that last ending.
Yeah, even the ending. Even the ending. I don't think it was that bad. I think it was a great show, and I love the fact that they stepped out on that ledge with that show. I really am. But moving on, Alexis, what do you feel like worked in the film? If you could name any one thing or two or three that actually worked in the film, what do you got for me?
The thing that worked for me were the characters that I wanted to spend more time with, that I wanted to see more developed. I absolutely loved, Brian Tyree Henry as Phastos. I thought his character was starting to develop really well. I wanted to see more. I mean, I wanted to see more than just, here's a plow. Oh, I have created the atomic bomb. Humanity doesn't deserve to be saved. I have a son now, and I'm married. Missing a couple of pages here. I wanted to see more of this development.
You wanted to see more of that. You wanted to see more of that gay on gay, man on man action.
Oh,
yes. Absolutely. I would get Ikaris and Sersi off the beach and put Faustos in there, and can we get Henry Cavill?
We need a Dane Whitman, Madden, and Fastos three-way on the beach.
Oh,
to quote Effie from GCW, make it gayer. Want to make more jokes, Jeff?
No, go ahead.
Aren't you glad you had me on tonight?
Back to you, Alexis.
Are you done? Are you done?
Yes.
Depends on where this conversation goes, but please continue.
For fuck's sake. It's like, I really thought we could get through this review without saying that. Way to go, Jeff. Okay. Hell, I just remember even thinking you get a brief scene between Druig and Makari when they find her still in the ship, and they're kind of flirting. I'm like, wow, these two actually have interesting chemistry. They're kind of cute together. I'd like to know more about them. You know, again, the actors were all really, really good in this, and they all interacted well, and I want to know more about them. That's why I can't say I feel that this film was bad. It's not bad. It was just mishandled. These are characters I really do want to see more of. This is a story that I didn't want to see condensed into 2.5 hours. It suffered from that.
I'll agree with Alexis on one element of her criticism. The movie feels a bit overstuffed. I think it exceeded its reach. This was there's a lot going on in this movie that could have been spread out into another movie or two, maybe even handled better in one of their 6-hour movie / Disney Plus series. But, you know, they went for a prestige Marvel picture that the world clearly isn't ready for. And, they took a swing, and a bit of a miss in where I'm agreeing with you, and where I think there was a miss was I think there was a little too much that Chloe Zhao was trying to wrap her hands around. I mean, compare it to Nomadland, which is this very intimate story about the loss of the American dream, and the sort of redefinition of one's life through nomadism and wanderlust. And she hits it out of the ballpark, if you're into sad piano movies, because there's not a whole lot she has to wrap her head around there. And then she kind of applies the same principality and structure to this Marvel movie, which is high concept and there's a lot going on. And I think another pass through editing and pre-development might have been helpful. What do you think, Lord Deathman?
I do tend to agree. Reach definitely exceeded grasp in this case with the film. And again, I'm not, hurt or sad that this didn't connect with fans. Again, I really think that it was just kind of the wrong size shoe. You have a Marvel size shoe and an Eternal size foot. And I just don't think that you would have to have been somebody very special as a director / producer to make those two work. But I think this, as an attempt, satisfied me in terms of the entertainment value and just the general story of this family. Not necessarily punchy superheroes that need to go out and fight crime on every corner, but as a family who have a very particular and special dysfunction and problem of being immortal and, being robots that have to listen to space gods. I do think Chloe sort of simplified parts of the source material that she probably should have dug a little deeper into, and then she overcomplicated parts of it that didn't need to be overcomplicated, making for something that feels like, there's a lot of exposition through the story, and she tries to mitigate that by showing you visuals on top of it. Like she's talking about the deviants going after intelligent life, and you kind of see a little clip of them taking down a dinosaur or whatever that was. But at the end of the day, she could have cut back on a little bit of exposition in terms of being telly and been a little bit more showy, which this genre sort of requires.
Here's an interesting thought experiment. Jeff, you saw Dune. I'm curious to get your opinion on this. What if, in an alternative universe, this is directed by, I'm going to mispronounce the man's name again, Denis Villeneuve? Based on what he gave us in Dune Part 1.
I think it literally could have been. I think if he had done the Eternals, I could do a whole show just on that whole premise, to be honest with you. But I think that he would have given us something that would have been visually stunning and from the trailers, I thought I was going to get a visually stunning film from Chloe Zhao, but I did not get one. I did not see a visually stunning film today at all.
Jeff, you had nothing for that third act in terms of the beach fight scene.
No, I mean, you know what? I will say, I did find some of the beach scenery and some of that. I did like it. I did think it was aesthetically nice.
I was gonna say, doesn't Babylon pop for you? The blues in the
Yeah, I mean, nothing.
The flashbacks didn't do that much for me. And you know what? And well, hold on, Alexis. Let me get back to you. Your likes. What else did you like in the film?
I'll actually go with the guys. I did enjoy the look of this film. Chloe Zhao reportedly tried to use as little green screen as possible. They shot on location for so many of the set pieces, and I do think that was very beneficial to this movie. I did enjoy it. Now, Mark and I did have a conversation a while back where we were talking about some of the scenes where I do think they need a little work. And I will admit, my only real complaint was the jungle fight scene, because I thought it was a little dark and I had trouble seeing it. But I also chalked that up to maybe the theater I was in. I just wasn't getting a good look at it. That has happened before.
Did you watch it digital or IMAX?
IMAX.
Really? And the jungle scene was
wow.
still a little unreadable for you?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, so, but again, it's like, that could, I've been in theaters before where it's like, and something's not calibrated right, and I just don't get a good look at it. So, but yeah, no, I really did like that they shot on location and tried to keep their CGI to a minimum. I did, like I said, I like the images of the celestial rising from the ocean. I thought that was really cool, that how you start to see the fingers and you realize the scale of this.
That was cool.
I said earlier about the scene of Arisham sticking his head into Earth's atmosphere, which I think actually the first thing that popped in my head was, well, now we know we can do Galactus completely, and we know it's going to look good. Seriously, there was actually Galactus was trending for a while on Twitter after this movie came out. And I think part of that was because I think somebody saw some images of Arisham in some leaked images, and he does kind of have the similar helmet to Galactus, and somebody started a rumor that Galactus would premiere. It's like, no, that's not Galactus. But I still think now it's like, well, now we know it could work. Suck on that, Fox.
So I'm listening to Alexis. I'm also thinking to what Lord Deathman said and how funny that is to me as an elevator pitch. Hey, I've got this movie about space gods and their robot children. Get the fuck out of my office.
Deathman.
Right.
Deathman, your likes.
Yeah.
Your likes for the film.
I really enjoyed the relationships between the characters. I thought that the actors did a pretty good job of working with the material that they had. This was not a perfect script. It has a few cringy moments where they try to inject the Marvel formula, the MCU formula of humor and fun into it. And I think of this property as a bit more stoic, much like the way Richard Madden played Icarus. But I see how people could think that that's emotionless. But to me, it's a more serious property. And I hate to sound like that douchey elitist who's at the comic book store gatekeeping, but I did that for a while, so it's in my DNA. So I really enjoyed the character relationships. I like that the conflict was between really the Eternals in terms of coming to a decision about their own future and their own destiny and trying to break away from fate and other actors controlling them. I thought that was a great narrative for this time and for the movie itself. And I got to tell you, the fight sequences in this MCU film, especially the forest and the beach, are some of my favorites of this entire franchise. And if you go back and watch them, I've seen the movie twice already on an IMAX screen. They make some of the other movie fight sequences seem cartoonishly flat because of the green screen usage. The beach felt totally dimensional. When you see Icarus deliver that punch to Druig that puts him right through the ground, I was like, wow, someone loved that animation and cared for it and had a real 3D environment to sort of plan it in and put that to make it look extraordinary. I thought the scene where Sersi was turning the ground to stone and was in the process of killing Tiamat, it looked beautiful. So I think, for my money and my take on it, she brings a beautiful dimensionality to the MCU that I didn't know that we needed until I saw Eternals.
So do you
so that
feel
was
like
those are my big likes.
do you feel I don't mean to crush the ending of what you
Oh
had to
no,
say
I
there,
was
but
and
no.
rent.
So what do you think of how do you feel like I don't want to say what direction do you think that they're going to end up going with these characters in the rest of the MCU, but do you like how they handled things with Sersi as far as her disappearing with I forgot his name. Is it Amisham?
Fastos
Arishem.
and it was
Arishem. Yeah, Arishem.
Fastos, Kingo, and Cersei getting kidnapped by Arishem, being summoned.
Yeah. I mean,
essentially,
what did you think about that? I mean, you know, I'd have to imagine as a comic book fan, you would assume just like I would and have that Cersei will probably stick around in the MCU.
Yeah, I thought that ending, if you could call it that, was really the result of overconfidence. You know, like Kevin, the boy wonder, thought he had it down. He's like, you know what? Let's put a little stinger on here that says that there's going to be more that you have to think about because there'll be Eternals too. So, but as a situation in the plot, it worked for me. I think that that's what the Celestials would do. They would summon their heralds and punish them or outline, you know, where they go from there with their relationship.
People didn't love Captain Marvel, but they were going to make a Captain Marvel too, no matter what people thought or how much money that thing made. And not only are we getting the movie, but we're getting the TV show too. So I'm convinced they'll plow forward with Eternals too, and just chalk this up to we're still in the middle of the Great Reset. It's fine.
You think we're going to get a movie or a TV show featuring Black Knight?
These are growing pains.
I mean, it's hard to say what they're going to do with Dane Whitman's character. I mean, I'm assuming if Blade is that's really Blade who's off screen talking to him, Blade's getting a movie in 2023 or 2024, wherever this thing lands.
You think that's Blade?
That's what I've read.
It is Blade. It is Blade.
It's been confirmed. That was Mahershala. Yeah, it's been confirmed.
Then just taking a shot in the dark here. That's where Dane Whitman ends up next. I mean, you know, Mahershala Ali, whoever he's training up to be the new Blade, and Dane Whitman running around hitting people with swords.
Although it's interesting because,
Jeff.
Guys,
it is.
Alexis, I'll get right back to you on this, but I just want to ask you real quick, all of you, does that surprise you that they would go ahead and decide to mix the Black Knight with Blade, and that's how the direction they're going to go with him, kind of within the mystic?
No, not at all. It baffled me for about all of a half of a second when I realized that the Ebony Blade is a cursed artifact, and cursed artifacts fit quite nicely with the horror side of the MCU if that's what they're planning to do.
I'm gonna go with they both had swords. It'll be fine.
I'm going to go with the fact that I am still intrigued because Black Knight and Blade have not had a lot of crossovers in Marvel Comics. So, I mean, I thought it was Nick Fury. I'm not going to lie. Audience was squeeing during the post and end credits scenes. I think I heard more than a few fangirls get excited when they saw Harry Styles, although, like I said, not a Harry Styles fan, but if you got to cast someone as Star Fox, you can't go a better choice.
I have to break the fourth wall here of irony for the female squeeze on Star Fox, biological brother of Thanos, and possibly one of the rapiest Marvel characters in existence.
Awesome.
That
is.
I wonder what they're gonna. I wonder what they're gonna do with that.
But the CGI Pip was fucking stupid as hell, man.
Screw you. Patton Oswalt as Pip, the drunken teleporting troll, is awesome, and he's the best character in Marvel. It's like him, then Captain America, then Iron Man. Pip the troll.
I think my exact words were, well, at least he's moved on since MODOK. Because Mark and I reviewed the MODOK animated Marvel series. And what did we say, Mark? How bad was it?
It was not good. Did you hear, speaking of which, I think they've recasted MODOK to the rumor is Jim Carrey.
I heard that.
Yeah.
Very interesting.
Yep.
Mark, your likes.
I love the cinematography in this movie. This is the most gorgeous Marvel movie ever captured on film, bar none. It's not perfect, none of it is, but the Babylon scenes were, just from a cinematography standpoint, were some of my favorites in the movie. The blues of the structures pop, especially on an IMAX screen, just gorgeous to look at. The not to not to make fun of the half and the bad guys, but the vistas, you know, on the beach and some of the other scenes are just captured wonderfully. Lord Deathman and Alexis both brought up the disadvantages of shooting on green screens, and like Ian McKellen and what's his face, the new Obi-Wan Kenobi, help me.
Ewan McGregor.
Ewan McGregor.
Yeah. Have both talked about, you know, in their own separate shots at Star Wars, how hard it is as an actor to interact with your environment when there is none. You know, and you're just run. You know, the monster is chasing you, run that way, and you're just running towards a green screen. And how much the both of them hated it for different reasons, and how much more a natural environment adds to a actor's performance. It elevates it almost any example I can think of. So that's one of the things I truly appreciated about this film was that it felt not gritty like in the Batman punching thugs way, but gritty, like this felt earthy and real. You know, this didn't feel over produced in a computer. This felt like a filmmaker showing up to a landscape and shooting with a real camera, which was refreshing. And maybe in that sense, I'm sort of overvaluing this film because I don't see that enough, and I saw it in abundance here, and that made me enjoy the film that much more. You were talking about how you thought Gemma-chan and the dude playing Ikaris was. I think they were giving the performance that was asked of them by Chloe Zhao, and I'm not going to fault the actors for giving the performance they were asked to by the director. You want to yell at and scream about Chloe Zhao and maybe not pulling more effective performance, more dynamic performances from the actors. It's a conversation that's worth having, but I think she was going for a tone. A very specific tone, one you don't necessarily see in a lot of Marvel movies, which is something I appreciated. I don't need every single one of these characters to be Doink the frickin' Clown, you know, and to be lighting up this screen. Like, sometimes I just want to see people that approximate real people having real conversations, and then a monster attacks them in an alley in London. That's fine. I'm fine with all of that. I loved Sprite. My daughter, that was her favorite character, which really shocked me because I thought it would be Angelina Jolie, good old warrior woman there. But my daughter and I both like the Sprite character, and I like the sort of play on that I can't remember the character's name, but the interview with the vampire, you know, the little girl that never ages because she's a vampire, and
Kirsten Dunst.
Kirsten Dunst. I couldn't remember the actress's name. God,
I watch the movie all the time.
Thank you. I liked other than the themes of determinism that Lord Deathman was talking about before. I liked within Sprite, and to Alexis's point, it's probably not. It should have been more well developed, but they only had 2.5, almost 3 hours for this thing. We didn't have a whole 6 to play with.
That's why I said I think this should have been a series.
But I do like the fact that they played with the with immortality and how that affects people, how traumatizing it can be. Sometimes you just want to die. You know, you've had enough of life. And I don't mean to be funny about that, but I mean,
and I'm an expert. I only laugh because that's my whole shtick.
There you go. You know,
sometimes it's time to die.
Sometimes you have lived enough life. And I don't know how many of you remember being a child. I know my childhood was a zillion years ago, but I remember back then, and it sucked. Like, can you imagine being a child forever? It would be horrible. So, you know, and it's like what the thing.
I don't know, man. I don't know, Mark. My body count when I was like 8 years old was like higher than like Lord Deathman's at like whatever age he is. So
think about the things you're not allowed to do as a child, you know, and the kinds of experiences you have becoming a teenager and then a young adult, and that natural evolution and being robbed of those things. But not only being robbed of them, being robbed of those things for zillions of years. How much does Sprite's life suck?
But if they would have just like showed her kind of like make a pass at Ikaris or something, or like if they would have like had her vocalize her emotion, her feelings for him in some way or something, I feel like they could have done more with her character.
Sure, more could have been done to flesh that out, but I got enough of it to tell you that that's what I liked about the movie. Go ahead, Alexis.
No, so I actually do agree with Jeff because I just realized the only times Sprite being in love with Ikaris is told to us. We never actually really see any real signs that she loves him, and the way she clearly admires him if you don't know that she loves him, could easily be mistaken for the same way that most of the team admires Ikaris. You have that scene with Kingo, who is telling Ikaris after they find out that Sersi's been left in command. He's like, "I'll still follow you, man, no matter what you say." So it's.
I'm wondering if that's a purposeful misreading of the characters. Like it's written to be misread, where they're confusing love with devotion. They're not the same thing. But I'm wondering if that was intentional by Chloe Zhao in the screenplay to say, "Oh, Sprite loves him." Well, Sprite, it's not real love; it's devotion. But like you're devoted to a leader, you're devoted to a cause.
Right.
Which is an example of an area they probably could have touched on. But can you imagine if they did? I mean, we're sitting here having an argument about this movie that already it's driving people nuts because it's a little too deep and a little too thoughtful. Now imagine, an extra 20 minutes in there of trying to explore Sprite's psyche and, and trauma and whatnot, and her devotion to Ikaris. Jeff would have got up and shot the screen.
That's right.
Yeah, he would have. I will add to Mark's very thoughtful comments about that. Devotion going both ways. Sprite's devotion to Ikaris and Ikaris's devotion to his duty. And I think Madden plays it in such a way that it reads as boring, and it's he doesn't feel like he's a person. But I would take boring and trade that word for stoic. And again, it's an archetype that not a lot of moviegoers. I see you chomping at the bit there, Jeff.
That's a leap, Death Man. That's a serious leap, bro.
Instead of stoic, can we say dutiful? Instead of stoic, can we say dutiful?
I will. Okay, I'll trade you a stoic for dutiful. But the thing I'm trying to get at is the idea of someone who has honor, commitment, duty. Those are very old-fashioned ideas, right? And when you look at a person like that or a fictional character like that in a movie, you just say they're boring, right? Like, why doesn't this guy party? Why is he not like taking ecstasy or no, the guy has a job and he wants to do it, just like a lot of the soldiers that do that stuff for us in the United States military. So I kind of saw him as a dutiful soldier, and that's why his performance didn't read as boring or flat to me.
Agreed.
Okay, and I'll put it to you this way, just that basically, I feel like again, well, you know what? Instead of interjecting my thoughts on that, let's just move on. And before we get into what didn't work, what was your take on the story, guys? And I'll start with you, Lord Deathman, and then we'll go over to you, Mark, and then Alexis, you can tail it off. What were your thoughts on the story? Because I feel like, Mark, to what you said just a moment ago, from a cinematography standpoint, I get what you're saying, but do you feel like the story matches up to the level of the cinematography?
You're up,
wow,
man.
Yeah. In terms of story, I enjoyed it, and again, I just enjoyed the interpersonal dynamic between each of the characters. I like the idea that they were on the opposing sides of an argument, and a rather deep argument. If you sort of move the sci-fi trappings out of it, duty, honor, responsibility, commitment versus free will, making choices for yourself, assigning yourself your own value. Those are, the screenwriters were thinking is what I'll say in terms of that conflict. It may not have played out like Dune or some other art piece where every line was methodically sort of thought out, but I do feel like, thematically in the story, it's entertaining, but it's also kind of thoughtful, right? And maybe a little too thoughtful for most of the audiences that saw it. So I didn't have any serious problems with the story. I thought it was really engaging.
I thought the story was a bit thin. There's a lot of exposition that has to be shown. There's, the story is basically a god's going to erupt out of its egg in the earth. we have to stop it. Well, we shouldn't stop it because that's the natural order of things. That's the whole story. And then there's because of the structure of the movie, I can see the structure of it not working for people. Jeff said something before, and I've teased Jeff a lot on this show, but I think if he made one really poignant point, is because of the way the movie is structured and paced with all these flashbacks, kind of lends itself, again, I'm going to go back to Jupiter's Legacy, it lends itself to the TV show structure more so than I think a movie. And it does get The Witcher kind of had the same issue for me, where you never knew where you were in the timeline because they never told you. You just had to kind of pick up on context clues. That for some people that worked. For other people, it drove them nuts. But so to the question of the story is simple enough. It's a bit thin, but because I think it's laden with so many other big questions and themes, and there's so many other elements to the film that are so strong. I'm not everything is going to be super thick and strong. Sometimes you need a thin plot because you're going to hang so many other things on it, and you don't want this to be overwhelming for the audience. Not to go off on a tangent, but like I said, I took my kids to go see Dune, and you want to talk about a thick, strong story with tons of exposition. My poor child is watching this thing and was like, "Hey, wait a minute, this is not like the trailer." And God bless him, he's 7, but he makes a point that I think goes to general audiences, where if you overwhelm them with too much story on top of everything else we've talked about, you're going to lose them entirely. So I think you sacrifice one to elevate the other.
Okay, Alexis?
Story I honestly thought was a little, like I said, I thought the pacing did the story a serious disadvantage in this movie. I don't know. This film has it's a non-linear story arc, and I'm fine with that, but I felt like this film didn't really juxtapose the jumping back and forth very well. One of my favorite examples is you have the scene where Ikaris is talking to Ajax, and he says, "I have something to show you," and suddenly they go from South Dakota, and they're in Alaska, and they're just walking, and I'm going, could we have seen a scene of like them flying or how they got there? Just because suddenly they're on a deck and then on a ranch in South Dakota, and then all of a sudden they're walking through the terrain in Alaska, and I'm going, what? It's just very off-putting. Again, I really do feel like this film suffers horribly from trying to cram so much into. Yeah, I know we keep talking about how long this movie is, but even still, 2.5 hours is not enough to really get to know these people and the story. And I can't stop staring at the fact that we all wore the same color tonight.
I wore this for family pictures.
I wore this because it's my favorite tank top. But sorry, Lord Deathman, I don't know what the hell you're wearing.
I'm completely nude because I'm just a skeleton.
I was going to say, you don't even want to know.
That was my guess.
So.
But in my mind, you're nude with a top hat and bow tie.
Somebody's seen Scary Godmother too many times. Again, it's very hard to say because this is a movie that I want to like. And this is a story that I want to like. And these are characters that I really want to like. And I am just looking at this going, guys, you had everything you need to really sell the Eternals in the story, and you botched it.
Well, this is where I come in with this story. I feel like for a story to be successful and to measure up to the cinematography, don't you have to have acting performances at that point and believable characters that elevate the story and validate the story? And I feel like in this film, that's the big misfire for me in a way among a couple, is the fact that Angelina Jolie is not even used properly, I don't think, in the movie. Like, I don't even like her character in it. I mean, the whole thing with her being crazy or whatever, they could have not even done that, and it would have been fine.
I don't understand your point there. One, they used her as a kick-ass warrior woman. What? She was Tomb Raider a decade ago? It's fine. She's fine. The stuff with her having the intrusions and insanity, I mean, you got to do something to differentiate the characters, and that played into the larger narrative.
They could have done something more with her, is all I'm saying, Mark. They could have done something more with that character, I feel like, than what they did with it, if that makes sense.
What did you want them to do with her?
I wanted them to elevate her character to the level that, and I mean, look, just in what she did in the movie, and how she comes off on film, I still found her good. Like I still liked what she did and everything and whatnot. But I feel like she's just such a force as an actress and as a personality and as a woman, like on screen, that I feel like they could have done different things with the character and the arc of her character and stuff like that. That's all I'm saying.
But Jeff, it really sounds like you wanted Angelina Jolie to come to the forefront because she's Angelina Jolie.
Yeah, I felt
she's a supporting character. She's not the lead. The lead is Gemma Chan.
No, I understand that, and that's my point. I feel like Gemma Chan's performance was so blah that like at the least they could have like salvaged things with me a little bit more if they would have done more to elevate Angelina Jolie's character, not just give us the whole her being, you know, crazy or whatever deal or whatever, and Gilgamesh has to take care of her.
I really like that. Angelina Jolie has been in approximately 1 billion movies, many of which she was the lead. It's fine for her to be a supporting another actress in a lead role.
I liked her in Gia back in the day.
I'm sure you did. She was also awesome in Girl Interrupted.
Yes.
Like I said, I'm not a huge Angelina Jolie fan. Although talking about some of the actresses does bring up an interesting point. We have three female actresses in this movie playing characters that were male in the comics.
Yep.
Ajax, Makari, and Sprite in the comics were guys, and they're female.
And that was to get a 50-50 team. It's 5 guys and 5 girls.
And you know, and the Ajax character, I felt like Salma Hayek's character had no impact on the movie at all either.
Oh my god, yeah. I actually remember walking. It's like, okay, I can get why they made Sprite female to add to the story. Makari, who I'm actually a little disappointed because there was so much press around the fact that they have the first deaf superhero in the Marvel Universe being played by a deaf actress. That's great. You know, I'm so glad they're being more inclusive, and she doesn't really do anything. And yeah, Ajax, Salma Hayek, amazing actress. And I'm just going to say it. She sounded more bored reading her lines than she did in Wild Wild West.
But Alexis, it's an ensemble movie with 10 different characters in it. And they had the runtime that they had. I don't really feel, other than Gemma Chan and sort of the Ikaris characters carrying, some of the main themes and being the dichotomy between the two sides of the argument, I don't know how much any one of these people was supposed to stand out more. If anyone got the short shrift in my mind, it was probably Druid, because he seemed like a very intensely interesting character in terms of his choices, in terms of what to do with his seclusion that you don't get to do a deep dive into.
He's another one.
But I think everybody
got. They could have left that out of the movie, and it wouldn't even have mattered.
Well, again, Lord Desmond, that's why I'm saying these characters suffer from being in a movie and not a series. Because yeah, I understand that you can't give everyone equal screen time, but but they're trying to get us to be sympathetic and to care about Ajax's death. When we see her body at the ranch, and we have that scene of Sprite doing the like a hologram, whatever it is, of the last time she saw them, and they're dancing, and we're supposed to feel for them and sympathize how they're crying and they're so sad they lost their leader. And I'm like, then give me something to connect to. Give me something to feel about.
What would that have been for you, though? But what would that have been for you?
It couldn't have been anything in the movie. That's why I'm saying this movie is horribly overstuffed, and it's sad, and it suffers for that.
I got to take issue with your line about Salma Hayek, and here's my thing. If you ever met people, and in the latter stages of their life, they've lived, they've seen some stuff, they've been in wars and depressions and whatnot, and they've got a calm about them. They're used the word earlier, and I think here it applies even in a greater sense, stoic. They're just not moved to emotion the way a young whippersnapper who ain't lived much life does. The Eternals are what, a zillion years old? And I think asking in characterization for them to be jumping off the screen, acting all crazy and carrying on and screaming, and I mean, like, they're thousands of year old robot god beings. They're allowed to be a bit composed.
We don't even get to know what it is that made her want to go against Arishin, though. She's the one who tells Ikaris, we have to find a way to stop the emergence.
The element that you're focusing on when you say, I wish things had been a little bit more developed, I think is sound. And I don't really have much disagreement there. I can quibble with some of the things you think should have been, the list of things you think needed to be, and versus what I think I just kind of accepted as what it was and didn't need it. But in a general sense, things needing to be fleshed out a little bit more, sure, no disagreement there. Well, but when you start talking about performances, Chloe Zhao clearly was going for a tone, and that's why I started bringing up like these are not the Avengers. They shouldn't play like Avengers.
Amen.
They should play like thousands of year old god robot beings. They should be composed and thoughtful. And maybe that doesn't work for a lot of people because they want the quippy Avenger stuff on screen. And and I think there's an argument to be had, a debate to be had about whether or not this should have been a television show versus a movie, where you can, as Jeff was saying before, like WandaVision, you can do some really out of the box things. They went with a movie. They swung for the fences. They went with a movie. They hoped the audience would go with them. And why wouldn't they? We've been with them for all these movies so far. That's been my argument all year with friend of our show, Chris Bailey, who all year long has been saying Eternals suck, Jack Kirby sucks, it all sucks. I'm 7 years old and I want more Spider-Man. All right, I hear you, Chris Bailey. I see you, but I've said, in response to all of that, the movie will be fine. People will enjoy it because why wouldn't they? We've enjoyed everything else Marvel's done up to this point. I might have been a little off on that assessment, but that's me having faith in the world once again.
The Eternals just needed their shawarma moment, and this would have been. It's like Eternals. They're not Avengers. They're not Avengers, and I can't emphasize that.
Ikaris should have grabbed Tiamat out of the ground and said, "I'm bringing the party to you." At which point, Gemma-chan says, "How is this a party?" Just do the whole fucking ending to Avengers all over again with those characters. It'll be fine.
Yeah.
Okay, so.
Can we wrap this up already?
What about the cast? And really take your time with this if you want or don't, because I feel like there's still a little bit to say about it. I want to get you in on it, Mark. I want to get you on it, Deathman. So Deathman, what about the cast? What are your thoughts?
All right, let me. I can do this through contrast. I love Dune. I read Dune as a teen. It's one of those, formative sci-fi books that you sort of do as a rite of passage as a fan of speculative fiction. And I was obnoxious at 15, like all the other people that read Dune, saying fear is the mind killer. I ran around saying that to people thinking I was cool, right? So when I found out they were making a movie of it, I was like, wow, but there's a moment in my life, right? It'll be cool to kind of go back to that. But I felt like with Dune, despite the fact that it is an awe-inspiring achievement in filmmaking, I thought their cast was so star power and brand driven. Timothy Chalamet, Zendaya, Jason Momoa, who wasn't in this movie, David Bautista,
Henry Cavill.
All of these people represent micro brands that overwhelmed the situational reality that you were supposed to believe from the film. And except for Rebecca Ferguson, who I give a ton of credit to for making the bacon in terms of her acting. She really, really anchored that film for me. But I'm looking at Zendaya and I'm like, oh man, when's your next Vogue cover shoot?
Deathman, I think she should get an Oscar nomination.
For the 7 minutes.
Yeah, I would definitely set up Ferguson for an Oscar for that. But it, as so the star power kind of took me a little bit out of the sheer wattage of Dune took me out of it, and the more relaxed sort of casting side of Eternals allowed me to immerse myself in it, and that's the best compliment I can give to the way they casted it. Gemma-chan is she's a known actress, you see her around, but I don't know like what her favorite color socks are or like who she dated last year, so it allowed me to say, oh, this is Sersi. And Brian Tyree Henry, Yale-trained guy, been in a lot of things, played heavies so violent and brutal that you wouldn't believe that Fastos, is the same in contrast to what he's done in some other movies. I think it was Widows or something like that he was in, where he played like a mob boss. But I really liked the casting because it was medium cool. It was just right there, and those guys get to do their jobs without kind of pulling me out of it. Maybe Jolie, and I'm like, that's a blonde wig, lady. But you know what? The rest of the cast is doing the work for you, so I'm okay.
All right. Alexis?
So,
For the most part, I didn't have any problems with the casting. I mean, Marvel has proven time and time again they know what they're doing with their casting offices. Again, I feel that some of the actors were either not utilized properly or just maybe given some really poor direction. And I'm going to stop repeating myself about that because we've been talking for an hour and a half and my ears are starting to hurt from the headset. So, I do like how we got so many different actors, so many different cultures and everything in this film. I felt it was very well representative. I like that. No one really turned in what I would call a bad performance. Bland, yes, but not bad. I do wish that, okay, I have to look up to make sure I'm pronouncing this dude's name right. Kumail Nanjiani was used a little bit more because he's a really good actor. I don't know if you guys saw The Big Sick.
yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah.
no, he was really good in that. And I was really excited when he got in. And then you saw those pictures released of how in shape he got. And I'm like, oh, awesome. We're going to get him for some awesome action scenes. And he's really going to be, out doing something, show how good of an actor is. And he doesn't even show up in the climax. We're talking about characters that we don't need. Freaking, Kingo goes home and doesn't show up until the end. And yeah, I was kind of disappointed about that.
Well, Mark?
In the interest of time, I thought the cast was fine. This isn't the Expendables. I wasn't looking for Chuck Norris and Dolph Lundgren and Sylvester Stallone to blow shit up with Ronda Rousey. You can't. As Lord Deathman said very eloquently, I might add, you have too many stars, you eclipse the entire movie. 1 or 2 stars. You get the hottest woman on earth, Salma Hayek. Fight me. I'll take that one to my grave. You get the hottest woman on earth.
I think you and Comer are in the same boat on that one.
Yeah, we have talked about that on many an occasion.
I believe it.
So, you got Salma Hayek, you got Angelina Jolie, and then you got to start getting some level, B, C, and D actors, or, again, it turns into the Expendables, and now it's a gimmick and not a movie.
Sure, most definitely. And moving on from that, why don't we go ahead and close things out by doing everybody's ratings? We'll do the 1 through 10s. I'll go right back to you, Mark. What's your rating for the film?
I'm going to give it a B. Not perfect. It's better than the average Marvel Drek. It looks gorgeous. I think it's well acted. It's not for everybody, and it's certainly not perfect, pacing problems and all of that, all the things we've talked about before. But I think it's a very grown-up deconstruction of the superhero genre. It's right in my wheelhouse, and I think Chloe Zhao and her team crafted a fine, better than average, interesting, wide appeal, general audience movie.
Okay. Alexis?
I give it a C-. It does have some really great stuff going for it, but frankly, I don't think it's enough to save the movie as a whole. I don't want to come across as one of those, I want my fun Marvel movies back. It's like more Spider-Man, please, I believe was the quote that you used, Mark. But the fact is that, when I go to a Marvel movie, I want to be entertained. And this film was not entertaining for me.
Me too. That's a really good point, Alexis. It really is. Deathman?
I want to give this film a B+. So I'm really very pleased that Marvel decided to take this opportunity to try a prestige film. And try is really not a great word. They made a prestige film in the genre. So they are trying to stretch and push the limits of their formula. They're trying to make sure that this franchise has a future beyond doing the same thing over and over again. So as far as the craft, all across the board on the film, I give it high marks, except for some convolutions in the plot and some really kind of derivative storytelling and cliches and trademarks from other Marvel films working their way into this. But I do want to say that with my B+ grade comes the foreboding prediction that it feels like we're closer to the end with the MCU than moving, because if this is how we're going to respond to them taking, as fans, a stab at this kind of thing. If this is what it looks like, there might not be enough fuel in the tank to take us through another 13 years.
Let me say this. Next up is not counting Spider-Man, which is a Marvel Sony split 7-inch. For all you youngsters, that was a joke about small records split by two bands. It's a whole.
You please quit pointing out how old we are, Mark.
Ask your grandparents. Anyway, Doctor Strange, I think maybe closer to what I think Doctor Strange people are going to really enjoy. It's playing with the multiverse, which they've been, just touching on in the shows on Disney Plus, but haven't committed full bore to. I think that I hear what you're saying, Lord Deathman, but I think the forthcoming movies will be a little bit closer to what people expect out of a Marvel movie. This was an outlier. I mean, again, when you ask the woman who did Nomadland to direct your stupid superhero movie, you're probably not going to get the same shit we've gotten for the last 3 years.
That's really my point. Just really quickly.
Yeah.
Everybody loves ice cream, but you eat enough of it, and you're going to be puking. And
Sure.
That's what I see coming for the MCU. Probably in 3 to 5 years.
I think Doctor Strange will be I think Doctor Strange will hit just the right pitch between just different enough to make you, to not make you vomit, but just same enough to make, the people who want more Spider-Man. I'm updating my catchphrase. It used to be more dinosaurs. Now it's more Spider-Man.
I thought it was more Scooby-Doo.
No, that's a whole other joke. There are two buttons at Warner. There are two
the
buttons
one you
at Warner
keep ready
Brothers.
to attribute to me. Thank you.
Who are you again? Anyway, okay. After Doctor Strange,
your ratings. Thank you very much.
Your name is Pat.
Okay. Oh, you are so dead, Mark.
Anyway, it's Doctor Strange. God, they just moved all of these. Oh, Thor. Between Doctor Strange, Thor, and Black Panther next year, well, I think we'll level off and be just fine. And those three will be different. First of all, I'm going to posit it there. I want to come back on the show, if for no other reason, to just revisit this discussion, Jeff.
Okay.
I think the most divisive movie is yet to come, and it's going to be Thor: Love and Thunder, and that's going to drive the comic book purists, the ones who hated Jane Thor or She-Thor, or whatever the stupid nickname they gave her is, to burn down the theaters, Marvel Comics, and everything that gets in their way. But everybody who's a casual moviegoer is going to love the shit out of it and think it's the best thing Marvel ever produced. That's my theory. The people will be fighting in the street.
I think Gore the God Butcher is. I think Christian Bale's Gore the God Butcher is going to be freaking one of the best villains of all time in the MCU.
Jeff, you don't understand. There's at least 3 people on the Radulich and Broadcasting Network chat who want to gut Taika Waititi and hang him by his entrails because of how much they hate Thor Ragnarok, to the point that I consider it fun whenever I praise Jojo Rabbit or something on the chat, just because I know it's going to make them squirm.
Right. So I think Thor Love and Thunder.
I'm sorry, with Thor, when that comes out, I am taking my dogs and I'm going to go hide in the freaking bomb shelter while our co-workers go ape shit.
Oh, like I said, I think this will be mass hysteria. Dogs and cats living together. It'll produce such acrimony between the two sides. People will be fighting in the street.
Well, check this out. What's it going to be like? What kind of reception? What kind of movie does Marvel Studios have to make with the Fantastic Four film to make that work? I mean, based on looking at how the Eternals was perceived, what kind of formula does Marvel Studios need to work with this Fantastic Four film to make it the right kind of film?
Yeah, the brand is so burned, the earth so scorched with the first Fantastic Four. I'd say don't make it. Make a Future Foundation film instead.
My pitch for the Fantastic Four film from a few years ago was that you meet them lost in space, and they're dealing with Annihilus.
Yeah,
And,
I like that.
Yeah,
you know,
we cannot have them. We cannot have another movie with their origin story.
I think the best way to introduce the Fantastic Four would be in an end credit scene where they pop out of a wormhole or some shit, and they're like, "Ta-da! Oh my God, you have no idea what's coming!" And then end credits, and then the next movie is the Fantastic Four movie is leading up to that end credit scene. So we go back. So kind of like I think it was like with Captain Marvel, or I can't
With
remember
the pager at the end of Infinity War.
Yeah.
That's exactly what I was about to say.
Something along those lines. And then like you said, the movie of the Fantastic Four is kind of like the way they handled the Hulk. We don't need to go through the whole thing again. They're already lost in fucking space. They've got their powers. They're lost in space. They don't know how to get home. They're dealing with Annihilus. It's all space fun with the Fantastic Four. I don't want to see hide nor hair of Doctor Doom in the next Fantastic Four movie.
I actually heard an interesting theory, and if they do this, I think it would be really good, is that you have a crew out in space getting ready to try to jump through a cosmic void or something, and then the snap happens, and the people who are calibrating the jump on the ship disappear, and all you're left with are 4 astronauts who suddenly basically are like, okay, now what the hell are we supposed to do? We can't stop the launch. Zero, they're gone.
But what if they're in the negative zone? Like they're doing an experiment in the kind of like with Ant-Man, where where he went into the quantum realm. What if they're doing an experiment in the negative zone? And as you're saying, the people who are supposed to tether them back are snapped.
Yeah.
And the movie takes place in the negative zone, and then they finally get out of it, and they go, shit, Annihilus is behind us.
There's also rumors about them doing a time travel thing with the Fantastic Four, so they can fight. What was the name of King the Conqueror's ancient Egyptian?
Rama-Tut.
Yeah. There's talk about doing something like that with Jonathan Majors.
I was hoping we get Rama-Tut potentially in the Eternals film. I was hoping we might get Atlantis in the Eternals film. I was hoping that we might get
allegedly we're getting Atlantis and Black Panther.
And Black Panther too,
I am with you though, Jeff. I actually think this movie, again, I don't need a million Marvel Easter eggs in this thing. We don't need the penultimate Loki episode. But yeah, thank you, Mark. But with how much they're going through time and how much they've impacted, it would have been kind of fun just to have a few little Easter eggs here and there of things that they may have come across throughout the history that we've seen in the Marvel comics. Again, we don't need a ton, but just a couple few here and there would have been fun.
Well, moving on. This is the time of the show where everybody gets to plug all of their shit. So, Alexis, why don't you start things right off and just go ahead and plug away.
All right. Well, firstly, yes, with the Radulich and Broadcasting Network, Mark and I are got a couple of shows coming up this week. Mark, correct me if I'm wrong, we're discussing Chippendale Park Life this week, which I haven't watched yet. I need to go binge that. I'm sorry, wholesale orders. I've been busy. Are we discussing What If this week as well?
Yeah, that's you, Jesse, and Robert. I noped out on that one.
Okay. I hate to say the schedule. Okay. So apparently we rescheduled everything, and then I realized that my calendar on my phone, I added the new dates, but I hadn't removed the old dates. So I'm going through, I was like, wait, I thought I moved that to something else. So
Since you're here tonight, are you doing Eternals on Tuesday with us?
Yeah.
Okay. So yes, just
sorry, you're going to have
Eternals, Chippendale, and What If.
Yep. Thank you. Oh, now you've decided to interfere. Thank you. Got that. Jesse Starcher and I will be getting ready to record our next edition of Tripped Up Trivia here on November 20th. The theme this month is Disney. That is to tie into the release of Encanto, the new animated Disney film. We're going to be dividing it into 3 different categories. We're going to be looking at Disney movies, Disney TV shows, and Disney parks. We are still looking for candidates who want to play. If your Disney knowledge is something that embarrasses you in front of your family because they want to know why the hell do you know all this, please come on, hit us up on Facebook or Twitter. Let us know that you're interested.
You get to play with my wife. My wife's going to be on that show.
I know. We set the date specifically so she could play with us.
Yeah. Awesome. So if you'd like to play with my wife, come play with Alexis, Jesse Starcher, and my wife Melissa. They're all playing together.
Please don't take that any other way, folks. And lastly,
I don't know what you're talking about.
Lastly, for Honeysuckle Rose Creations, where fashion meets fandom at the intersection of geek and chic. We are getting ready for the holidays here, folks. I still cannot believe October is over. We are going to be launching our big Black Friday sale. Everything in both our Amazon and Etsy stores will be 20% off. But this is also the launch of our annual charity drive. Every year we do this for St. Jude's Hospital, starting from when we launch the sale on Black Friday to Christmas Eve. Every order that is placed, every individual order, Honeysuckle Rose will donate $5 to St. Jude's. So that's every individual order taking place from Black Friday to Christmas Eve. And of course, like I said, 20% off everything. Our dice necklaces, our earrings, our barrettes, our charm bracelets, everything is going to be 20% off. So please, go ahead and check out our stuff. Again, we have shops on Amazon and Etsy, and you can follow us on social media through Facebook, Instagram, and Twitter. It's Honeysuckle Rose Creations, the intersection of geek and chic.
Mark Rudledge.
Yes, sir. All right. Just real quick, Alexis mentioned some of the shows we're doing. We're also reviewing Titan Season 3. We have our annual Veterans Day show with newly minted father Andrew Graham from our Canadian office. He and I, every year we do something war related, soldier related for Veterans Day. We've done 13 hours. We've done, I can't remember what the other one we did, me and him, but we've done a bunch. This year we're doing Band of Brothers from HBO. In addition to Titans Season 3 and Chippendale Park Life, I am also going to try to cram in yet another TV series to review this week, this time with Ronnie Adams. We're going to review Heels from Stars with one of the Amell brothers.
Steven.
Thank you. All right.
Former Green Arrow.
So you can... we just wrapped up a whole bunch of boxing coverage. Last night was Canelo versus Caleb Plant for the unified, undisputed super middleweight championship of the world in the 4-belt era, and Canelo, of course, knocked out Caleb Plant in the 11th round. Myself and Chris Bailey did alternative commentary for that. Plus, in the run-up to Canelo versus Caleb Plant, we re-aired a whole bunch of Canelo fights, everything from Canelo versus Triple G2 through his Infinity Gauntlet-like quest for all the belts in the super middleweight division against Billy Joe Saunders and Callum Smith, plus his dalliance in the light heavyweight division with Sergey Kovalev, his ill-gotten decision win against Daniel Jacobs, the whole 9 yards of the last few years of Canelo. It's all in there. And we just re-aired, as the show was being taped, we re-aired our Jaime Mungia versus Gary Spike O'Sullivan fight on DAZN from a year or so ago, because Jaime Mungia is fighting Rosado this weekend on DAZN, which I think we might be doing coverage for. I'm not entirely sure just yet. Daniel Lasby has to get back to me. No, we aren't doing it this weekend because this weekend is AEW Full Gear, which will be reviewed on the 17th. In any case, enough of my rambling. You can check us out on W2Mnet.com. That's the website that hosts all of our podcasts. We are on the Radulich and Broadcasting Network as part of W2M. Is on all your podcatchers, Apple, Spotify, whatever you use to listen to podcasts. We're there. Just type in W2Mnet and you'll find us. In addition to which, we're on YouTube. We are live streaming all of our shows now. We have decided to enter the 21st century, whether I like it or not. So you can interact with us as we are recording the show live, as people have done with our boxing shows, which have gotten pretty popular. And then lastly, we are also live streaming on Twitch. So check out W2M on Twitch. Again, type it in and you'll find us. Lord Deathman, you like boxing?
I'm not the biggest boxing fan, I'll confess, but some of the bigger events I do partake in from time to time. So please feel free to send your promos.
Well, I was gonna say, if you ever want to jump on an alternative commentary, I can't always get Robert Winfrey because he's got UFC coverage, and it's a rotating cast of wonderful characters providing alternative commentary for boxing. So the more I have, the merrier. So I'm gonna throw that out there. Anyway, that's the Radulich and Broadcasting Network on W2Mnet.com. That's all.
Of course, and if I can do anything to try to connect Deathman with you, Mark, or you, Alexis, about anything, I always will. Just let me know what I can do, and I'll try to get you in touch with them.
Make more boxing friends. That's what I need. I need boxing friends.
Hey, everybody needs a friend like Lord Deathman at the end of the day. You know what I
Lord
mean?
Deathman
Like,
needs to watch more boxing.
there
No,
you
he
go.
doesn't.
Lord
He's
Deathman,
sick.
you want to do some Sakar plug-in, some Podcast of Champions?
Absolutely. I will do some quick plugs here. Obviously, I have to represent for the Podcast of Champions. We're on YouTube and most of the major podcasting outlets. You'll find this audio only there as well. Just do a search on YouTube for Podcast of Champions. You'll find our large library of content. We've got a lot of great things coming up. I know we're going to do a breakdown and analysis of Disney. This Friday, Disney's doing something where they're unveiling more Star Wars and Marvel content that's going to be coming up probably for the next year. So we're definitely going to be covering that over the weekend and then publishing the video shortly. We're also covering all 6 episodes of Hawkeye. So you definitely want to check out the podcast when we do that. And then shortly after that, we're going to roll right into the Book of Boba Fett, doing our usual super professional coverage of that show. Yeah, and there are big things coming from us in 2022. We also have a message board that you should check out at sakar.freeforums.net. All are welcome. Very chill community, all sorts of fandom, sports. We touch on a little bit of politics there, but it's mostly about fandom. And we'd encourage you to join us if that is your thing. Marvel, Star Trek, Lord of the Rings. We're all over the map, and everyone is welcome. Just want to also say, had a great time being on the show. Want to thank you for having me, Jeff, and great discussion with both you, Mark, and Alexis. If I said anything that was too cutting or or too glib, please know that it was all just in good fun.
Oh, we enjoyed having you, Lord Deathman, and I really enjoyed having you on, Mark. It's always nice to have you. It's always a special occasion to get you on the show. Alexis, it was great to see your smiling face once again. It's been a while. And I guess just to take things out, I'll just say that, of course, as always, please subscribe to the MCU'S YouTube, the MCU'S Bleeding Edge YouTube channel. Sorry, folks. It's been a long day. We could really use your support. We're on all the podcast directories. So please, if you want to check the podcast out, feel free. We appreciate all of you that catch our live streams, all of you that catch the videos afterwards and everything. And we appreciate all the support and love that we get from friends, family, fans, everybody. And for Jeff and for the rest of the team here on the Bleeding Edge, and for Alexis, Lord Deathman, for Mark Rudledge, peace.